Hi bodyweight tribe athletes. Today we will learn how to periodize for calisthenic skills. And this is the way that I approach programming for my own students and the way that I approach my own training as well. Before we get going, all the tribe athletes that are not yet subscribed to the membership site, please do so. The link is here, link is everywhere, find the link. Periodization is a fancy word, basically meaning how do you structure, how do you organize your training with not only the next workout in mind, but how do you sequence workout after workout, week after week, month after month. The reason that you would want to periodize your training to begin with is to prevent plateau from occurring, to providing yourself with different stimuluses and really make progress for longer periods of time, since if you do the same workout, repeat the same workout or thereabouts, so the same repetition range or the same method for 16 weeks, it simply does not work at a certain stage, maybe for a complete novice, but eventually you hit the wall. So you want to prevent that, you want to structure your training in advance. Calisthenics is obviously a relative strength. It's a strength-dominant sport. So most of the time, the majority of your training will be devoted for strength. Strength repetition ranges, strength training methods, strength tempos, and minority of your time, some of your time will be devoted to other metabolic demands, other repetition ranges, broader exercises that are less specific to your goals necessarily, but that will be the minority of your time. Therefore, I choose a ratio of training blocks that is 1 hypertrophy to 2 strength. That's usually the ratio that I like. You can really play with that. You can do 1 hypertrophy, 1 strength. You can do 1 hypertrophy and 3 strength training block, but I go for 1 to 2. Obviously, if it was the other way around, if hypertrophy was your main goal, you will do maybe 1 strength block followed by 2 bodybuilding hypertrophy blocks. But we're a strength dependent, strength dominant sport, we'll do 1 hypertrophy block, 2 strength training block. A training block will last anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks. 2 to 6 weeks, and again. And remember, these are general guidelines, meaning you can apply the ideas, the principles to your training, but that's not necessarily the solution for you. Okay, you will have to find out for yourself, or sure, you can leave a comment down below, leave a message, whatever. I'll be glad to help. Accumulation phase will start with, in this case, lower intensity, higher volume, broader exercise, more exercises in general. So let's say our goals are handstand push-up and 1-arm chin-up. We will start with the main work of 6 sets of 6, so that's fairly high volume, 36 repetitions for the main work, and we will move to a supplementary work, 3 sets of 12, really lower intensity, hypertrophy work, tempo of 2-0-2-0, so that's 2-1, 2-1, constant tension, really putting a lot of focus on mind-muscle connection. One arm overhead press, so that's not really a specific exercise for freestanding handstand push-up. It does not have the closed kinetic chain. It's external resistance exercise. It's unilateral. It's not bilateral like the handstand push-up. It does not have the freestanding handstand component, but that's the time to devote to weaknesses. Maybe I have a big discrepancy between arms, so that's the time to take that into consideration. And supersetted with croc rows, which is basically heavy, high repetition dumbbell rows, again unilateral, maybe putting focus on 1 limb at a time, narrowing the gap between arms. Slower tempo, constant tempo, no explosiveness. That's the accumulation phase. That's one example. Maybe for you, 6 sets of 6 is not accumulation. Maybe for you it's 5 sets of 10, 10 sets of 10. Maybe for you it's 5 sets of 5. Those are general guidelines. Look at the principles behind. We will move on to the first strength block, which is the second training block, and we will move to 5 sets of 3 to 5 repetitions with the main work, handstand push-up and 1-arm chin-up. So higher in intensity, lower in volume. We're performing 15 to 25 repetitions in the main work, instead of 36. We drop the overall volume. Still very specific. We will always want to work around the main goals in some variation, some form or another. Obviously, we use harder variations of the handstand push-up and one-arm chin-up than the first block. And then we move on to the supplementary work. It is more specific this time. It's elevated pike push-up, it's pull-ups, pronated grips. It's a variation of the main work, more specific, still higher volume, 3 sets of 8. So not a lot of intensity, hypertrophy work. We switch the tempo to 3-0-X1. X is explosive. So now we do take into consideration the speed of and the intent of fast movement, which is really crucial for recruiting the fast twitch fibers. So also switching between different tempos, research shows that actually builds more strength even for fast twitch fiber dominant sport. It's better that you switch between different tempos than just stick to fast tempos and explosive tempos. Really interesting. The second strength block, the last training block, the third one, would be handstand push-up and one-arm chin-up, the hardest variations, the most intense, for 10 sets of 1 to 2 repetitions. Extremely high intensity. Tempo is even shorter than this one. It's 2-0-X1. So controlled eccentric, but not a slow eccentric by all means. Longer rest intervals between sets, 3 to 4 minutes between the handstand push-up and one-arm chin-up, and 3 to 4 minutes between one-arm chin-ups to the next set. So long periods of rest intervals, 1 to 2 repetitions. This is the time really to see results from the previous training blocks. There are no supplementary exercises. We're just focusing on those two, the most specific, the most intense work, the hardest variations that we can. This session, after the warm-up, just the main work will take you from 60 to about an hour and a half. Just focusing on that. Very specific, very intense, but that's the goals. That's what we're training for. We're a strength-dominant sport. That's where we want the program to basically narrow towards. So that's how I structure the training for my students. That's one example of how you can actually demonstrate a periodization. That's linear periodization. We went from the most volume, least intensity to the highest intensity, least volume. So here we're basically 10 to 20 repetitions total. That's more than that, and that's the highest amongst the three. That's how I structure for my students. That's one approach. That's how I structure my training. Hope that you learn a lot from this video. If you have any question, leave them down in the comment section below. If you haven't joined the membership site yet, join the tribe. Link is everywhere. Thank you for watching. See you next time.